Episode 1 begins now. My name is Sebastian Giraldo, and this is The Giraldo Show. Good afternoon, this is The Giraldo Show. Let me introduce myself as your host. My name is Sebastian Giraldo. I'm an 18-year-old conservative Republican from Atlanta, Georgia. Now, I know what you're thinking. Atlanta, Georgia, it's a pretty liberal city, so how did you turn out to be a conservative? Well, I guess it's a long story, but I'll put it down, I'll condense it a little bit. I was born in a family that was kind of in the middle, kind of moderate, considering I am Hispanic. You would expect Hispanics to kind of be more on the left side of the table, or on the liberal or democratic side, but kind of toward the end of my senior year, or the end of my junior year, I kind of started to read the news more, open my eyes, and form my own opinions, and those opinions really coincided with the conservative and Republican side. So I really started to become a conservative from that point, but then I started to notice something, that there aren't a lot of conservatives that are willing, or at least young conservatives such as myself, who are willing to get out there, spread their voice, spread their message. And someone like me who really wants to be involved in politics in their future, my ultimate goal is to eventually, hopefully, be the youngest president of the United States. Not just president, the youngest president. So hopefully that's a goal that I'll be able to obtain in the near future. But for right now, I'm just an 18-year-old guy trying to get his conservative word out there, to try to encourage people that are like me, that think like me, to also get out there and also try to help others to see our point of view. Because I feel like, especially in today's media, in today's society, it's really pushing a lot of left-leaning or democratic agendas. And it's it is bullying conservatives and Republicans to kind of stay quiet. Because, for example, I go to college, and really if you have a differing opinion than someone on the left or on the liberal side, you will start to get shut down. And I don't think that should be it. I think everyone should have their own opinion be spread. That's the basis of the First Amendment, that government specifically cannot intervene in your freedom of speech. And since government doesn't say, hey, you can't have a differing opinion than everyone else, we should be able to spread our message and get our word out there. And I feel like that's something that conservatives, especially young conservatives, aren't doing. I see some people starting to get up there, and I'm really happy about that. I really encourage that, but I want this podcast to kind of show how someone young, someone fresh, someone woke, as the left might say, is really focused on trying to help the United States understand the conservative standpoint and to try to convert them to our side of thinking. Because I'm not saying that every single thing that conservatives believe in is correct, but I guess I am kind of saying that everything that conservatives believe in is correct. Now, I am open to differing opinions. I have had my mind changed. Granted, it was by conservatives, especially on the death penalty. I used to not be very heavy on the death penalty, usually because of my religion. I am a Catholic, but my opinion has kind of been changed on that. I still don't really like the idea of the death penalty, but I do understand why it is very important. But really, enough about that. The first episode is going to kind of focus on something that I hold very dear to my heart, and that is treating sex and sexual activity as a bondage, as actual love instead of as an object. And I know that's kind of tough to bring in as a first topic, but it's kind of the first thing that I thought about when I wanted to spread a message, because I notice that a lot of people, especially in my age, treat sex as an object, something that you can just go have sex or sleep with whatever girl or whatever guy you want and nothing will happen. Well, unfortunately, that's starting not to be the case anymore, with recent news showing that Brett Kavanaugh, for those who don't know who Brett Kavanaugh is, he was the Supreme Court justice that Donald Trump, our president, nominated for the vacant position, and Dr. Christine Blasey Ford started to throw out allegations that he raped her. And those allegations proved to be completely false. She didn't have any evidence. So Brett Kavanaugh was put on the Supreme Court. But now new allegations are starting to come out saying that he sexually assaulted another woman, and it's not a good world for conservatives, because I feel like it's another attack on the conservative people, because the left media and left leaning people of today don't want their opinions challenged, even when their opinion is so incorrect, because no one really likes to be challenged. But I feel like conservatives are more willing to listen to other opinions. But let me go ahead and get to the basis of my argument. I am not shy to say that I am a virgin. I have been a virgin. I don't believe in just sleeping with some random people like I know some people at my previous school have done. And I feel like the reason for me is not just religiously. Again, Catholic, you kind of taught that you can't have sex until you're married. But for me, it's something more than that. Because research and science shows that when you have sexual intercourse with a woman or a man, if you're a woman and you have sex with a man, or if you're a man having sex with a woman, there's a certain bondage. And hormones and emotions start going all over the place. And research shows that once you have a sexual connection with someone, you want to have it with that same person again. It's a sort of, I guess you could say, primal instinct that we have, that once we have something that's ours, because sex to me is something that it's between two people. It's not something that is just thrown around like a lot of the youth of today just throws it around saying, oh, I had sex last night, or I had sex with 3 girls last week. I haven't heard those people say that, but I'm just giving a hyperbole, a hyperbolic example. So pretty much, I want to help people who have this idea, like I do, that you should really wait until you have sex with someone you truly love. I want to be able to spread that message out, especially in this first episode, to everyone who also has that same idea, because I feel like those people are getting shunned. They're getting shut down and saying, for example, a friend might say, how you haven't had sex yet? I can't believe you haven't had sex yet. It's like, why not? It's like, you don't really want to say your reasoning, because I've had this experience before, because I've had a couple of friends that have mentioned that to me. It's like, why haven't you had sex yet? And I always give the same reason, because I don't have a girlfriend. But deep inside, I know my reasoning is because I haven't found someone I truly love yet. And I think that's a very important factor in love life, especially considering recent stories of rape allegations and sexual assault allegations. And I think that all boils down to not keeping sex as a sacred love between two people. The problem is that when you start treating sex as an object, you start to want to crave that object, and you want to try to get that object in any way possible with anyone possible. And unfortunately, that's what leads to some rapes and some sexual assaults, because as a man, I know men can sometimes be pigs. I am not ashamed. I'm not ashamed to say that, but men can sometimes be pigs. And the problem with that is that when that instinct pops in that, oh, I want to have sex, but you don't have someone with that connection, you try to find whoever. Now, for adults, that could potentially mean prostitution, depending on the state where you live in. We're not really going to get into that today. I kind of want to keep this a shorter episode, but to me, the importance of sex is, again, the bond. It's not something you can just throw away because it's cool. I feel like sex now has become cool instead of something that's sacred and kind of private, because I've had, again, a lot of people that I've talked to, they've kind of thrown sex around and kind of flashed it out for people to see. It's like, oh, I've had sex. Like, for example, I've had sex 5 times. It's like, I don't see that as something to really promote, because it's something that is so private that, for me, for example, I would not promote my own sex life. And I want people out there, especially young people that listen and tune into this podcast, I want those people to understand that sex is a very, very sacred relationship between someone that you really, really love and yourself. It's not something that you can just throw away because you want to seem cool. And that kind of boils down to more Judeo-Christian values. It's something that I've listened podcasters such as Ben Shapiro promote. In his book, The Right Side of History, a fantastic book, I recommend you read it. He really talks about wanting to go back to Judeo-Christian values, family values, the sex after marriage. He's a big example of someone who is very successful, who is not afraid to say that he didn't have sex until after he was married. Same thing with his wife. He and his wife lost their virginity to each other, and I think that's something that's so sacred that it needs to start to come back. We need to start to promote this to young people, but not in a way that most high schools do it, in my opinion, because they get someone in high schools, for example, they get someone in to promote safe sex and sex after marriage, but kids don't really, teens especially, they don't really pay attention to that. They don't want to listen to that because they're like, they don't know what it's like. I'm a teen, I want to do what I want. And speaking as a teen, I know I've had those feelings before, because sometimes you just have that feeling that you want to be cool, in quotation marks. You want to be able to be with the groove, be with those people that promote their sexuality and how many times they've had sex with how many number of girls. But with adopting a more conservative, a more Republican mindset, I've realized that that's not what's ideal. Because keeping a relationship, especially such a sacred relationship like sex between you and someone you deeply love, a wife, a fiancé, it's so important. It's what keeps families and marriages together. Because you see a lot of stories about people who end their marriages horribly because of affairs, because of cheating. And first of all, cheating, horrible thing, horrible, horrible sin. But that kind of comes from not keeping sex as a sacred object. Because I feel like most men, they want to, when they see that their wife is potentially not living up to their standards, then they'll go and find an affair with another woman. And I don't think that's the correct thing to do. I think we need to adopt more civil Christian, Judeo-Christian values that instead of destroying marriages, destroying families, destroying entire lives of children who look up to their parents because of affairs, destroying that relationship because of an affair, we need to try to get rid of that. Because not only will that reduce, obviously, the amount of divorced people every single year, but that's going to reduce the amount of men that sexually assault and who sexually rape. And I'm not trying to be on men, because I think a majority of men, especially more adult men, people that are over the age of, let's say, 25, they kind of understand that sacred relationship because they've been through that past experience. They could potentially have wives now, and they understand, wow, it is so much superior to be able to have a deep bond between my wife and I. But it's a message that youths and teens don't really get out there. So for anyone that tunes in, especially to this first episode, that might be thinking, what does this guy know? How could he potentially change my mind? Take it from someone who is currently a teenager, 18, going on 19. Take it as someone who wants to go through that experience and how my life has been impacted by that. Because I'll tell you, I think my life is better because I've made that decision. I haven't gotten any diseases. I haven't been in any problems. I haven't gotten any girl pregnant. And I think that those are problems that teenagers especially, they don't worry about that much, especially guys. Because guys, they get a girl pregnant, they can kind of run away. And I don't think that's the correct thing, first of all. Because first of all, that incentivizes the girl to get an abortion. And I am strictly pro-life. I do not think that is a good enough reason to kill an innocent baby. But second of all, it teaches men that they can run away from their problems. And again, I'm not trying to bash on men, but that's how today, how sex is being treated and how it's really boiled down to that. That if you're just having sex all over the place and you get people pregnant, if you run away, people will say things, but you won't necessarily feel responsible. And I want to change that, especially with all the new generations, future generations, Generation Z, Generation, I don't know, whatever the new generations are. I want to be able to change that, change the views of people who may be on the fence of that, who may be thinking about having sex before marriage. And hey, if you want to do it, go for it. I believe in freedom of choices. You can make whatever choice you want, but just know that some choices aren't the best for you. So that's all the message that I wanted to spread. So I think that's going to be it for today. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please help me out. Share this podcast. Spread it out to anyone who's listening. It'd be a great support. I'll try to get an episode out once or twice per week, depending on how much we are able to spread this podcast today. So thank you very much for listening. I hope to see you next time. I am Sebastian Giraldo, and this is The Giraldo Show.